tripped up trying to understand who does what on a project.
Uh-huh.
Especially when you hear about both a Scrum Master and a project manager. It can feel like, well, you need a decoder ring just to keep them straight.
Yeah, that's a really common experience,
Yeah.
actually. While both roles are, focused on getting projects successfully completed,
Right.
the way they approach that goal and their day-to-day responsibilities can be quite different.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we've got a fantastic comparative guide, and we're really going to dig into the core distinctions, the specific duties, and the fundamental methodologies that define both the Scrum Master and the project manager.
And this isn't just for people in project management, right? If you're part of any team trying to achieve a goal, or even if you're just kind of curious about the modern ways projects come together, understanding these roles can give you some really valuable perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah. Our goal today is basically to give you a crystal clear understanding of when and why each of these roles plays, well, a vital part.
Yeah.
Okay, let's kick things off by looking at the foundational concepts, Agile and Scrum.
Good place to start. The guide we're looking at points out that Agile is essentially a project management philosophy. Think of it like a mindset.
Mindset.
Yeah, one that really values working closely with the customer, being able to adapt to changes as they pop up,
Yeah.
Developing the project in smaller, manageable chunks, and delivering value to the customer early and often.
Right. It's almost the opposite of those more traditional, like, step-by-step approaches. Waterfall, for instance.
It's exactly. Waterfall,
Yeah.
where you have to nail down every single detail up front and finish one whole phase before you even think about the next one.
Yeah.
Precisely. And what's interesting is that while Agile really got its start in software development, its flexibility and that strong customer focus, they've led to it being adopted more and more across a huge range of industries now.
Which kind of brings us to Scrum, then. Our guide explains that Scrum is a very popular, specific framework for actually doing Agile, right?
That's it. It gives you a structured set of practices for teams tackling complex projects. They use these short, focused work periods called sprints.
Sprints, okay. Usually what, like 1 to 4 weeks?
Yeah, typically 1 to 4 weeks. And within those sprints, Scrum has some really key elements. You've got the product backlog.
Which is like the big to-do list?
Sort of, yeah. A living list of all the features, fixes, everything needed for the product, and it's prioritized by someone called the product owner.
Gotcha.
Then there's sprint planning. That's where the team figures out what they can realistically get done in the next sprint.
Makes sense.
You've also got the daily Scrum, that quick daily check-in, maybe 15 minutes just to sync up.
The stand-up meeting.
Often, yeah. And finally, the sprint review and retrospective. That's where the team shows what they built and then reflects on, how they can improve their process for next time.
Okay, so that gives us the lay of the land for Agile and Scrum. Now, let's zoom in on the Scrum Master role.
Yeah.
The guide calls them a servant leader of the Scrum team. What does that actually mean day to day?
Well, that servant leader part is absolutely key. A Scrum Master isn't your typical, top-down manager.
Right.
Instead, their main focus is on serving the team's needs. So that means making sure the team understands and actually follows Scrum principles and practices.
Okay.
And they're also there to actively remove any obstacles, any impediments that are stopping the team from making progress.
So they're kind of like a facilitator and maybe a shield for the team, making sure they have what they need.
Exactly. A facilitator, a shield, and also a coach. They help the team get better, become more self-organizing, and really embrace those Agile values. Facilitating those Scrum ceremonies we mentioned, sprint planning, daily stand-ups, the review, the retrospective, that's a big part of it too. Making sure they run smoothly and productively.
So the key is they support the team managing itself rather than telling them what to do.
That's the core idea. It's about fostering that self-management capability.
Okay, that paints a very different picture from, well, what many people think of as a project manager. So let's switch gears. How does the guide define project management, the discipline, and what are the project manager's main jobs?
Right. So project management, according to the guide, is the broader process of leading a team to hit specific goals within certain constraints. Timeline, budget, scope.
Constraints are key there.
Definitely. It's a wider field than just Scrum. It covers everything from the initial idea and planning stages all the way through execution, monitoring, controlling, and finally closing out the project.
And the project manager is the one steering the ship, basically. The guide says this role isn't just for tech.
Oh, absolutely not. You find PMs everywhere: construction, IT, healthcare, education. I mean, pretty much any field where you have complex projects that need careful handling.
So what are their main tasks?
Well, they're usually the ones defining the project scope, what's in, what's out. They manage the money, the budget. They set up the timeline, coordinate different teams and stakeholders.
Stakeholders too, okay. So
Okay.
not just the core team.
Exactly. They're looking at the whole ecosystem around the project. They also need to spot and handle potential risks.
What?
And ultimately, they're responsible for delivering the results on time and within that budget we talked about.
And here's a big difference the guide points out. Authority. Unlike the Scrum Master, the PM usually has formal authority.
Yes, that's a critical distinction. They're generally accountable for the overall success of the project. That includes the people working on it and the processes being used. They often have the authority to, make decisions and direct resources.
Which must affect how they handle problems, right? A PM can maybe just say, do this, while a Scrum Master needs to persuade.
That's a really good point. A PM might escalate issues and use their formal authority to get things changed. A Scrum Master often relies more on influence, coaching, negotiation, trying to get stakeholders to understand why an impediment needs removing. It can sometimes take longer, but might build a stronger buy-in.
Okay, this side-by-side comparison in the guide is super helpful. Let's just run through some key differences. Approach. Scrum Master is pure Agile Scrum, but a project manager.
It could be anything, really. Waterfall, agile, maybe some mix, a hybrid approach. It depends on the project, the company.
Got it. And focus.
Yeah.
Scrum Master is all about the team and clearing roadblocks. Right?
Yep, team facilitation, removing impediments, whereas the project manager is looking at the bigger picture.
Our project success, budget, scope, time, the main constraints. Authority, we touched on this. Scrum Master. Generally no formal authority, more of a coach. Project manager.
Usually has formal authority over scope, budget, often the team itself.
Okay. What about owning the process?
The Scrum Master makes sure Scrum is being followed properly. The project manager kind of owns the entire project life cycle from start to finish.
And team management. Scrum Master helps a self-managing team.
While the project manager often directly manages the team and resources.
Reporting lines seem different too. Scrum Master reports maybe to the product owner or stakeholders about team progress.
Yeah, or impediments. The project manager typically reports upwards to senior management, maybe a project sponsor on the overall status, risks, budget tracking.
Right, and tools. You mentioned Jira and Trello for Scrum Masters. PMs use different stuff.
Often, yeah. More traditional planning tools sometimes, like MS Project or Primavera, maybe Asana. Tools that handle detailed timelines, resource allocation, that kind of thing.
Reflects a different focus, I guess. And certifications. Guideless CSM, PSM, PMI-ACP for Scrum Masters.
Those are common. And for PMs, you see PMP, Prince2, KPM quite a lot. They really are distinct paths in terms of credentials.
Yeah, seems like it. And where you find them? Scrum Masters mostly in IT software.
Still primarily, yeah. Though Agile is spreading. But project managers, they're needed in pretty much every industry.
Okay, final point from the comparison. Main goal. Scrum Master wants to improve team flow and performance.
Right, optimize how the team works together, the project manager's main goal.
Deliver the project goals within those constraints. Scope, time, cost, get the job done.
Precisely. Deliver the intended outcome successfully.
So thinking about all these differences, when does one role tend to work better than the other? Like what kind of company or project?
That's a great question. In companies that really thrive on flexibility, speed, lots of team collaboration, especially where the product changes quickly.
Like software still.
Often, yeah. The
Okay.
Scrum Master model really shines there. It lets the team adapt fast, but in more structured organizations or maybe on projects with super clearly defined scopes and tight budgets from the start.
Construction, maybe.
Could be, yeah. Or large infrastructure projects. The project manager's more directive, control-focused approach might be seen as more effective for hitting those fixed targets.
Okay, so if someone listening is thinking, which path is for me? What kind of background does the guide suggest? For a Scrum Master first.
For Scrum Masters, the guide usually points to a bachelor's degree, IT, computer science, business or common. But really, it's about understanding Agile and Scrum deeply.
And getting certified, like CSM or PSM.
Definitely helps. Those certifications, CSM, PSM, PMI-ACP, are valuable. But maybe even more important is actual experience on an Agile team. You got to know the dynamic.
Yeah, makes sense. You two have lived it a bit. What about the path to becoming a project manager?
Well, again, a bachelor's degree is often a starting point. Business, engineering, IT, even project management itself. Or maybe a diploma in project management.
HNDs and things like that.
Exactly. And those big certifications, PMP, CAPM, Prince2, are often crucial. They show, the standard frameworks. And like the Scrum Master, real experience is key. Managing projects, leading teams, even just working across different departments.
Right. So pulling it all together, how would you summarize the kind of person who fits each role best, who's suited for Scrum Master?
The guide suggests someone really passionate about Agile, enjoys coaching and facilitating teams, likes that often fast-paced IT software world. That person might love being a Scrum Master. Good communicators, good at untangling team-level problems.
And for the project manager?
Probably someone who enjoys taking the lead on a bigger scale, wants to see a project through from A to Z, maybe across different industries, and is comfortable with that direct responsibility for scope, time, budget. Needs strong organizational skills, planning, leadership.
And it's interesting, the guide notes you can move between them, right? It's not always one or the other forever.
Absolutely. The skills overlap, and understanding gained in one role is super valuable in the other. You might start as a Scrum Master, really learn Agile and team dynamics, then move to a PM role for broader scope later on, or vice versa even.
Okay, so to really nail down the key takeaway for everyone listening, it's clear that while both Scrum Masters and project managers are, well, absolutely essential for projects to succeed,
Critical roles.
their day-to-day jobs, their focus, their whole approach, fundamentally different.
That's spot on. Different roles, different skill sets, different perspectives, both vital.
So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to kind of chew on. We talked about Agile spreading beyond just software, given that trend.
Yeah, it's happening more and more.
How might these roles, Scrum Master and Project Manager, keep evolving? Could they merge more? Maybe we'll see new hybrid roles pop up. And thinking ahead, what skills do you think will become even more valuable for people in both these jobs as project delivery keeps changing?
Definitely some food for thought there, whether you're planning your career or just trying to understand how teams get things done today.